All right, we're going to do geometry final prep. So I've done a bunch of the work on here. Make sure you're paying attention and you're writing all these notes down, and make sure you're showing all your work. All right, so first off, it says in the diagram, it has here PQ is congruent to MQ. So PQ is congruent to MQ. So it's showing you those two, and I put the little markings there. And the measure of angle M is 70 degrees. So remember, make sure you write this down for your notes. For an isosceles triangle, at least two of the angles are congruent and opposite sides go with the sides. So this guy goes with that angle, this guy goes with that angle. All right, so it wants to know what's the measure of TQP. So remember, the middle letter is the vertex, 180 degrees in a triangle. So what you're going to do is, if this is 70, this is also going to be 70 because these two are congruent. So you're going to go 70 plus the measure of angle Q equals 180. And then once you get that, you got 40, and then go 180 minus 40 equals that. So that's one way to do it. The other way is the exterior angle. So we want to find, this is the angle we want to find anyways. So what you're going to do is you can go this angle plus this angle equals this angle right here. So either way works, but your answer should be 140. All right, for this one, it says which parts must be congruent to prove that triangle PQR is congruent to PSR by side angle side. So that's what that stands for. So you're going to go through and you're going to look at each one. So you got angle Q, angle S, and then QP and SP. Well, that gives us, and then this is reflexive property, so that's saying it's congruent to itself. So that's going to give us a side angle, or sorry, two sides in an angle, and so that's not what we want because it's not in the right order. So you have angle Q, angle S, so that's angle, and then it's going to give us a side and then a side. So that's not what we want. All right, here's QS, and then QR, QR, and then SR, and then this again is reflexive. So here we've got another side, side, and we got an angle, so that's a no. And then here, so remember, you want to go in order of how it's written. Okay, so here we want angle side angle. So we did QRP. So that's this angle. And then SRP. There. So here, and it's saying QP and SP. So that's angle side angle, so that's a no. And then lastly, we have QPR, which is this guy. And then we have SPR, so that's this guy. And then we have QP and SP. So we've got side, angle, and then we have reflexive property here. So that's why that's the correct answer. All right, for your mid-segment theorem, you have a few of these. So I'm going to go through this one, and then the other ones I'll kind of just go through quickly. So we know that this is the midpoint because these two sides are congruent. We know this is the midpoint of this side because this is congruent to that. And this is the mid-segment theorem. So remember, segments connecting the midpoint is parallel to the third side, and it also means the length is half of the third side. So you could see it written as x, and then the third side would be 2x, or you could see it as 2 small equals the big, or half the big equals 1 small. So any of those, so that's why you've got that, and then we're going to do some problems with that. All right, number 4 is alternate interior, because we know that since this is a quadrilateral, and it says here AB is parallel to CD, so these are parallel lines, and we know that AB is congruent to CD. So this is your parallel line with the transversal, and we know that this angle is congruent to that angle. So we know so far we've got a side, we've got an angle, and we've got another side. So side, angle, side. All right, here's another mid-segment theorem. I'm just going to go through this quickly. So just remember, if you have midpoints, and you know that because it's marked here, You've got a midpoint, and you know that because it's marked here. Then remember, you've got x, and that's 2x. So really, all you got is, so you need 2 of the smaller to equal 1 of the bigger. And then I just showed my work down here. Now at the very end, once you solve for x, don't forget to plug this back in to here because it's asking for st. So once you get 3, substitute that back into there. All right, for number 6, just remember that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. For an isosceles, there are at least 2 sides are congruent. So at least 2. Equilateral is also isosceles. And then so here. Now, angles across from the congruent sides are also congruent. So if you notice here, these two, that means that these 2 angles are going to be congruent. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 20 and we're going to subtract it from 180, and that's going to give us 160. Now we're going to take that 160 and we're going to divide it by 2, and that's going to give us 80. So that's where I got these from. Because isosceles means 2 of the angles are congruent. So if this is congruent, it goes with that angle, and that's congruent, it goes with that angle. And you can do the same thing here. So to find this, you can find this guy right here by going 180. Oops, I meant to write 80 equals 100. So that's 100. And then now you're going to take the, I'm going to erase that real quick. I made it, oopsies. All right, so we're going to go minus, oops. Okay, now we're back on track. All right, so now we're going to take this 80 and divide it by 2. That gives us 40, and that's where we got this. And we know that we can divide it by 2 because this side is congruent to that. So if this is 40, and then that goes with 40. So then you go ahead and it wants to know what's the value of x. Well, x is all the way out here. So you can do it 2 ways. You can do supplementary angles here, where you go 180 minus 40 gives you that, or you can go 40 plus 100, which is your exterior angle, which would give you that. Either way works. Number 7, we have a rectangle. We know rectangles are all 90 degrees. And then the measure of SMN, so remember you're going to go SMN, so it's going to be this angle is 65. So we can find this angle right here by going 65 minus 90, or taking 65 from 90. That gives you 25 here. Now, since this is a rectangle, we also know this length is congruent to that length. So that means you have an isosceles triangle. So if this is 25 degrees, this is also going to be 25 degrees. Don't forget, vertical angles are congruent, so then you're just going to read through. And then just make sure MP and RO, well, that doesn't always mean they're always true, so that's what you're looking for. This means perpendicular. So that's not always going to be true, because this could be 70 degrees, and that could be 70, but we don't know the measurements right now. And then here, OFP, and then RFM, well, yes, this is congruent to that, because they're vertical angles. And then RFP, and then MFR. Those are not congruent because they're not vertical angles. All right, this one, just remember, it does not have a line, but you can draw a line because these 2 are midpoints. And you know this is a midpoint because you have 20 here, 20 there. This is a midpoint because you got 30 here and 30 here. So remember, you can have one of those equals 2 of the bigger ones. So remember, 2 smaller ones equals 1 of the third side. And then if you were to take that, plug it in, 2x equals 70, x equals 35. All right, so here, alternate interior, or exterior, excuse me, they are congruent. So you're going to equal them to each other and solve for x. All right, in this case, it's alternate interior. Those are also congruent. So you're going to equal them to each other and solve for x. vertical angles are congruent. So you're going to, again, set them equal to each other, solve for x. Now, this one's different because you have to solve for x and you have to find the measure of RDE. So solve for x. So exterior angle says this angle plus this angle equals this angle. So your exterior angle. Exterior angle equals the sum of the two remote interior angles. And then once you get x equals 4, substitute 4 back into here. And then that's how you get an answer of 65. All right, for 14, that one you should be able to do. Because remember, x plus 1 equals, 2 of x plus 1 equals negative 6 plus 3x. And you're going to solve because you know, since these are midpoints, you can equal those. And if you do it correctly, you should get 9 as your answer. And then for 15, it says find US. Oh, I forgot to say, make sure you plug back in. So make sure once you find your x equals 8, once you get x equals 8, sub it in, and your final answer should be 9. All right, and for 15, you're going to do the same thing since this is the midpoint. And then this is the midpoint. You're going to equal them. And you know there's 2 of the smaller one equals the big one. And then you're going to go through, solve that. You'll get x equals 9. And it wants you to find US. So once you find US, so you're going to substitute 9 into there. And you'll get, or excuse me, negative 9. And negative 9 plus 23. And that's going to be your answer. All right, for 16, just remember the smallest side goes with the smallest angle, and the largest side goes with the largest angle. So this is going to correspond with there. And then in this case, this angle corresponds with this. So this angle goes with this side, so that way you know. But first we have to find that side, so that's why I did 180 minus 130 equals 50. And then now the two shortest sides are going to be this side and this side because they're opposite. And the longest side is HF because that goes HF. What did I do there? I meant HG. My bad. Okay. There we go. So make sure you fix that if you wrote it down already. All right, and then these are just practicing whether they're congruent or not. So make sure here it gives you 3 sides. Side, side, side. So side, side, side. So that's your thing. Now remember, angle, angle, angle does not mean it's congruent. So it could be, but notice this is a vertical angle. It's congruent to itself. Now here, you've got a side, you've got an angle, and then here is your other side, your third side. So side, angle, side. All right, now here, don't forget, this is your hypotenuse, and this is a leg. So these are your hypotenuse legs. And then here, you've got an angle, you've got a side, and you've got an angle here. And then here, you've got an angle, and then you have a side. All right, and then that is your geometry final exam review.